Have you ever felt like you were at the end of your rope with no way out? In Ruth Chapter 2, we witness an incredible moment where God opens a door that no one saw coming. One that begins to turn Naomi's despair into hope. Naomi and Ruth's situation seemed hopeless, but God's providence was already at work preparing a way to restore them. Hi, I'm Mary. Welcome back to Bible Study. If you've been enjoying this series, please take a moment to click the subscribe button below so that you don't miss out on any future videos. When we last left off, Ruth and Naomi had just arrived in Bethlehem as widows with almost no financial security. Their situation was very dire. This causes Ruth to take initiative by seeking work in the fields during the barley harvest. Let's get into chapter 2, starting at verse 1. Now Naomi had a relative of her husband's, a worthy man of the clan of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, "Let me go to the field and glean after the ears of grain, after him in whose sight I shall find favor." And she said to her, "Go, my daughter." So she set out and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the clan of Elimelech. Okay, so you might be wondering, what exactly is gleaning? This was actually God's built-in social welfare system in ancient Israel. Under the Mosaic law, landowners were required to leave the edges of their fields unharvested and make only one pass to collect crops over their fields during the harvest. This provision ensured that those who were economically disadvantaged, the poor, widows, orphans, and foreigners, could work to gather food for themselves. But here's where it gets interesting. Ruth happened to end up in a part of the field belonging to Boaz, a relative of Naomi's late husband Elimelech. Let's see how this unfolds. When Boaz arrives at his field, something remarkable happens. He notices Ruth working and asks his field supervisor about her. The response he received is nothing short of glowing, highlighting Ruth's work ethic and her loyalty to Naomi. Under normal circumstances, a foreign female worker would barely receive a glance from a wealthy Israelite landowner. The people who showed up to glean the fields were essentially society's lowest class. They were scavengers by necessity. But Ruth's character and diligence caught Boaz's attention. He was impressed by her. This caused him to go above and beyond the legal requirement of just letting people pick up leftover grain. Remember in verse 2, Ruth asked Naomi to let her go and find work in the field of a person with whom she finds favor. Well, that little unofficial prayer just got answered in a major way. Boaz extends an unusual amount of privilege to Ruth, far more than what was customary for this type of work situation. He instructed her to come back and work in his field, telling her not to go to work in other fields. He allows her to drink from the water vessels that were drawn by his young men. This was not the custom in Israel. Usually, women drew water for men, never the other way around. Ruth's reaction reveals her humility and surprise. Verse 10. "Why have I found favor in your eyes that you should take notice of me, since I'm a foreigner?" Boaz's response is equally revealing. Verse 11. "All that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband has been fully told to me, and how you left your father and mother and your native land and came to a people that you did not know before. The Lord repay you for what you have done, and a full reward be given to you by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." Boaz takes his generosity a step further. At mealtime, he invites Ruth to eat with the workers in the field. He offers her to dip her bread in the wine. Having a meal with someone in the ancient Near East represented so much more than just satisfying hunger. It represented unity, friendship, and agreement. This was not typical for an Israelite to do with a foreign person, especially a Moabite. Boaz continues his kindness by giving this instruction to his male workers. Verse 15, "When she rose to glean, Boaz instructed his young men, saying, 'Let her glean even among the sheaves, and do not reproach her. And also pull out some from the bundles for her, and leave it for her to glean, and do not rebuke her.' So she gleaned in the field until evening. Then she beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley." Just for context here, an ephah of barley can be as much as 50 pounds. This wasn't just a good day's work. It was an extraordinary provision, enough to feed her and Naomi for quite some time. Quick side note to all my single girls. This is the kind of intentionality you should expect from a man who's genuinely interested in you. It's the total opposite of breadcrumbing. When a man is serious about you, it'll be obvious. He might not take you down to the Olive Garden and start dropping breadsticks for you to glean like Boaz's workers did for Ruth, but he will show you kindness and care for your well-being. Just like Boaz with Ruth, there's no guessing game here. His actions will speak loud and clear. Now, back to the story. Verse 19. And her mother-in-law said to her, "Where did you glean today? And where have you worked? Blessed be the man who took notice of you." So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked, and said, "The man's name with whom I work today is Boaz." And Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, "May he be blessed by the Lord, whose kindness has not forsaken the living or the dead." Naomi also said to her, "The man is our close relative of ours, one of our redeemers." When Ruth returns home, Naomi immediately recognizes God's hand in this coincidence. Her response reveals a crucial detail. Boaz isn't just any relative. He's one of their potential redeemers. Okay, so what's a redeemer? In ancient Israel, a redeemer was a family member with the responsibility to rescue or help those in distress. A redeemer could buy back land that had been sold, avenge the death of a relative, or even marry a widow to provide an heir for a deceased relative. Naomi is beginning to see something in this situation. God has clearly been at work. In verse 20, Naomi recognizes that Boaz's actions were not just the kindness from Boaz, but the kindness of God himself. Naomi may have felt bitter and heartbroken at the beginning of the story. She had lost everything, but now she's slowly starting to see God's hand at work in their life. Ruth ends up in the right field, meets the right man, and receives unexpected favor. And for Naomi, what seemed like a hopeless situation just might be turning around. Let's close by reflecting on Naomi's words from the end of chapter 1. In Ruth 1:19 through 22, Naomi tells the townspeople not to call her Naomi, which means pleasant, but to call her Mara, which means bitter, because she believes God has turned his back on her. But here's the thing, Naomi couldn't see the whole story yet. God had not abandoned her. He was already at work making a way for her redemption. My name happens to be Mary. It's a derivative of this term, Mara. While I was preparing for this study, I felt God asked me what I would say to Naomi if I could walk beside her on that journey from Moab to Bethlehem. I would tell her, "Oh, Mara, don't you weep. Your God has not forgotten you. You think he's left you. He's actually gone out ahead of you. He's in tomorrow, even before we get there. Just wait patiently. And you'll see his plan unfold step by step, revealing his mercy and grace in ways that you never imagined." If you're facing loss, grief, uncertainty, disappointment, confusion, betrayal, illness, or heartbreak, any situation where you can't see the end of it, you don't know if there's going to be an end to it, just know that the Lord sees you. He's going to answer you. While it may not look exactly as you expect, he will work all things out for your good and for his glory. Stay tuned for our next video. It's going to be wild. Don't forget to subscribe to catch the next video in this series. I'll see you soon. Bye.